All right. So this is the Town of Southborough, Mass Recreation. There we go. This is the Town of Southborough Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 29th at 7:30 p.m. So we're calling the meeting to order at 7:37 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions for the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Recreation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website. And for this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so by following the meeting guidelines on our website. So no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. To the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post to the Southborough website an audio or video recording, transcript, and other comprehensive recordings of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So if we do have people in the audience, you should have a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that allows you to raise your hand. So if you do have public comment or want to say something, if you raise your hand, we can allow you in to speak. All right. So on our agenda tonight, the first thing on our agenda is actually to approve our meeting minutes from last meeting on March 2nd, 2020. So commission members, you should have received an email around like 7:10 with those meeting minutes. So we can take just a minute here if you want to take a minute to review those.
I don't even remember what we talked about.
I was like, when did we meet?
It's actually kind of funny to read them.
It was the lighting session.
All the lighting and all the plans we had for the summer and baseball and softball and yeah.
Who knew? Sorry, I had to log into my Gmail account again. This is what happens when the kids are now using the extra laptop.
No problem.
Oh, we can vote, huh? On the email? Is that what we should do?
Yeah, someone needs to make a motion. Yep.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from, sorry, I closed it, of course. The meeting minutes for Monday, March 2nd, 2020.
I second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
And I believe technically we might need a roll call vote because this is remote. So basically it'd be like Hanson, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Okay, yes.
LaBault, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is let's jump into the director and member reports. So Tim, do you want to kick us off on kind of the department updates?
Sure. Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of joint this one with Alex as we flow through it.
Tim,
Just
I'm
'cause
sorry
there's a
to
ton.
interrupt. Sorry to interrupt really quick. Do you see anything from Dave trying to get in?
Nope, it's up on my screen, so it's right next to me, so I'm waiting. So as soon as I see him, he'll pop in.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay. So I guess before I start, and for anybody who's watching at home, I just want to say thanks for all the cooperation that we're really getting from the public. I know that everything we're doing, be it field closures and playground closures and cancellations of programs and stuff, is not ideal. Obviously, this whole situation isn't, but I just want to say thank you on behalf of the department for the cooperation and the understanding that we're seeing from our town. It's definitely not easy. It's not easy for us, but you know, hopefully we're on the downward slope and we can kind of get back to normal in the coming weeks. So we officially left the office March 16th, so not much, you know, pretty much the week after almost that we had our last meeting, things started to really take a turn. So starting on the 16th, we've officially been working from home. Alex and I have been going in kind of intermittently when needed, be it just to collect some files or supplies, or, you know, we were in for a few days putting up signage, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen around town, kind of marking off the facilities, the playgrounds, things of that nature. But, you know, the three of us, we have been, you know, surprisingly busy. You know, Alex and I speak daily on kind of happenings that are going on in town, and kind of preparing, you know, weeks and weeks out. Just, you know, we're not, as much as we want to sit back and wait to see what decisions are made, we know we can't do that. So we are planning very far out, planning alternative means for programs, and looking at alternatives of some things that we can potentially implement for weeks, if not months to come. And, you know, some days actually seem busier at home than they may in the office. So, but it's been good. You know, I was a little worried that we'd be a little, you know, I don't know if bored is the right word, but without things to do. But we've definitely been keeping ourselves busy. So it's been good. So like I said, so March 16th is when we closed the office. The week prior to that is when we started canceling everything. So that was mid-session 4 of RAP. So Alex was really hit hard with that, you know, both with the refunding and kind of working with vendors. So Alex, now that Odin is there, if you want to just kind of go over what you've been dealing with. There she goes. This happens every Zoom call. it's either her dogs or my dogs. So. Hi. So that's okay. So do you just want to kind of run through what you've been dealing with, I guess, since we first started our cancellation to where we are now as it comes to programming with us?
Sure. So like Tim mentioned, we canceled the majority of the classes while we were still in the office. I think we spent the last Thursday, Friday that we were there. We canceled most of the classes. We kept a few open because we didn't know if, at that point, we had only known that they weren't going back to school on Friday. We didn't know that they'd be canceled for the time being. So we left a couple of the Monday off-site classes still on, in hopes that maybe parents could bring them. But then it was pretty much decided that everything was being canceled. So we went through, canceled all of our classes, refunded for the classes that they were not going to be able to do. So we, prorated that. That took quite a long time. And then we kind of went from there and just started doing, damage control of closing all the playgrounds and closing everything as quickly as possible to stop, the spread and people going out in public and things like that. So that's kind of the main things that we did kind of right off the bat.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like she said, so we were 2 classes into that session. So that's kind of how long we've been out, and we'll get into more of the real quick. Kristen, I have oh, it just left. I don't know if Dave's trying to call in or what he's doing. Do you know?
I told him just enter the meeting ID and password.
Okay. All right, I'll keep looking. But yeah, we'll kind of, I think, go into that a little further when it comes to the financial piece of it to get a better picture of really the effect that that kind of hit us, just with 4 being cut short and then 5 being totally out. Where else? So I think one of the better things to come from all this is, as a human service department, we've kind of joined forces with our other departments of the senior center, of the library, and of youth and family services, as this is kind of affecting us probably more than just with our duties more than most. So we have been collaborating on a good amount of programs, mainly with us being involved to assist with registrations, as the face-to-face contact piece is off the table, especially with youth and family, especially with the library that they've grown so accustomed to. So we're helping with that. We are doing a yoga class through the rec department. It is our traditional yoga class with our instructor. We kind of put it out there for free, hoping, we would get our usual group to continue. We ended up with 60 people registered from the town.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
it's been really
awesome.
good. So we haven't been seeing all 60, but which is expected, just like any other program, but we've been getting a steady 20, 30 every single class. So it's been really good. A lot of familiar faces, some new faces, and we're going to continue doing it after this session. The instructor has been generous and understanding when it comes to not taking payments from the public, working with her on our end to supply her with a reasonable amount to help us. So it's been really good. But so we got yoga, we're doing the youth and family and library, doing a lot of webinars, they're doing a book club, virtual speakers, library's doing a henna class that we helped put out that just sold out. So we're definitely helping where we can. We have struggled a little bit with programming with our contractors and our vendors. Alex, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so a lot of our vendors either want us to charge families, which Tim and I kind of decided we don't want to do that. We don't want parents to feel like they have to pay $30 for, a Zoom basketball or whatever it may be. So we've kind of turned away the vendors that we contract out. The vendors that we have, or teachers that we have teach classes, unfortunately are just swamped. I don't think it's right for us to ask them to do something when they're trying to teach 20 littles on Zoom every day. So granted, we're not really putting out programs, but I just don't think it's right. Especially, even the aides that we have, I know that they're absolutely swamped with work, helping the teachers and things like that. And also too, I know that the kids have crazy amount of schoolwork that if we start putting out things, they're going to want to do these fun things rather than their schoolwork. And then all the parents are going to be mad. So I think we've kind of just tried to, I share, we have a vendor, Skyrise Theater, that does, story time with Moana or whatever it may be. And I try to share those on Facebook. I mean, if you want to join them, you can, but I just think it's too hard right now with the amount of work the kids have and the amount of work the teachers have to do, that it's not feasible for us to ask anyone to do anything for us, because their real job is way more important than teaching, a Zoom yoga for little kids type of thing.
Yeah, and piece of it too is that we we're in no place to ask, and we never would, but we need to assume that not everybody made it out of this unscathed, and there are probably some families struggling with unemployment. And so to try to offer more classes, but say next thing you know, oh, you want to do a little kids fitness thing, well, that's going to be $30. Like we don't want to be in that position. So we met today, actually. I don't have this in my notes, but it's worth saying. We met today. We had a call again with youth and family and with the library, and not just the directors, pretty much the whole departments. And we actually came up with a list today about 9 programs that we think are feasible to put out that we can do between the 3 of us for next month. So we'll start working on those and seeing how much we can we can actually get accomplished. A lot of just stay at home, a lot of kind of low activity things that, you know, could have a big impact. So we'll, now that we know that school is out, I think that's another piece of it too with Alex and I is it's been such a question mark of if they were going back, as much as we, I think, knew in the back of our head that they weren't. You know, we didn't want to start scheduling things out and making assumptions. So now that we know that the kids will be out, we're going to be, I think, pushing out a little more than you've been seeing on the program piece of it.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Have you guys considered I understand completely what you're saying about the weekdays. They're between bands and all the extracurriculars. It's a lot. Have you thought about like a Saturday, Sunday or a Sunday type offering? Because weekends are tough, especially if it's rainy.
We have not. But what I can say is the things that we have planned now that we're thinking about for May could solve that.
Okay,
easily. Cool. So hopefully that could address that. And I don't want to say what they are because I don't want to publicly commit myself to it. But it's a good list. It's a fun little list. So it'll be good. And then just the biggest part that I think the two of us have been dealing with has been facilities, closing them, working with the town administration, working with public safety to really close them down and all get on the same page, and coordinating efforts to make sure that you know, physically they're closed down, that, you know, Alex and I have been monitoring them weekly more. Admittedly, Alex and I, as she is local, we have had to speak to too many groups. We've had gyms who have brought out their personal training groups to try to do classes in parking lots in the fields. Okay, Dave just popped in. I'm assuming David is Dave, so I'll just throw him in. And then, good night, sweetheart. And where was I? So closing the fields, closing the playgrounds, and just monitoring them, making sure that we had everything out.
Hey, Dave.
Everything needed to ensure that people were respecting the rules. And you know, it's been hard, especially with the weather, kind of getting glimpses of good weather after horrible weather. And it's just been hard. Again, we'll go over that, I know, later in the meeting, but the big part of our jobs lately has just been monitoring our facilities and making sure they're being used appropriately. We do have the track open. We kind of made a decision on our end before we brought it forth to Mark and the selectmen to keep the track open. You know, for seniors as a flat surface, and just because, you know, hopefully they're using the track appropriately. You know, we know that many aren't, and we've been out there a lot. But making sure that, you know, people have a safe place to go, especially if you don't have sidewalks around your house and things of that nature. So, but facilities has been definitely taking the most. And then outside of that, you know, we're doing a lot of webinars, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of conversations with our colleagues in Mass Rec and Park. Our central region is very active. So we've been meeting with them weekly just to kind of understand what they're doing. What I can say is we are pretty much on par with everybody else around us when it comes to closures and when it comes to how we're handling programs. Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody has their fingers crossed for the summer, because that's going to be a make or break for a lot of departments. So we're just gonna wait and see. But I think that I could probably talk for 20 more minutes on what we've been doing, but that kind of sums it up.
Are you hearing any more? Are you hearing like any rumblings of when the governor is going to come out with his decision?
Yeah, we had a rumor swirling. It was going to be last week. Alex and I spoke to Representative Dykma about it, and she said she had no idea. She hadn't heard. She was surprised to hear that we heard something that turned out to indeed be a rumor. And then what I was told, what we found out through some of our colleagues who've been working legislative with our association, is that the American Camp Association has hired a consultant for New England and has sent them to work with the CDC on guidelines. And it is expected the second week of May that we should have some sense of what is going to be going on. We know there's going to be guidelines in place if we open we know there's going to be something we have to abide by. Alex and I did meet with the new town nurse as well. And we kind of spoke briefly kind of on a macro level of, some things that we should be considering going into it, but we're hopeful second week of May, we should hear something.
That'll be huge.
Yeah.
Oh, I just froze.
All right, do you want me to just go into projects or?
Yeah, we can jump into project updates. Yep.
Sure. So DePietri was supposed to start last week. I reached out to Alan, who's the head of North Turf, who was awarded it. They are playing catch up, I guess, from the fall and mix that with all the rain we've been getting. They're just a little behind schedule, but also some of their workers did get sick, so they were closed down for a little bit. So I spoke to him today. I think it was today. Every day feels the same. And he's going to be out here in the next week or two. So I plan on meeting with him. He has some questions to address and they should be getting underway. So, hopefully now that school's out, it should be a very quick job as long as the weather cooperates. We don't have to worry about rerouting buses or anything like that with some of the work we need to do with the water lines. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a much clearer picture. If not, we'll have a crew out there starting that project.
That's great.
Yeah, I just would like to get that one checked off. Calander. So I guess another kind of blessing in disguise of this thing, if there's such thing, is that this has bought us more time to prepare for town meeting when it comes to Calander. We got a lot of heard a lot of, or I did at least, from Mark, that there were still some concerns on the project, which I think we all assumed that people were going to have questions on town meeting floor and what it may be. And some of the questions were matching what CPC was asking, that it revolves around the level of water that the swale that we're going to be renovating is able to contain. And a lot of the questions we've been getting is people want hard numbers to know that the swale can, retain this amount of water before it starts filling over, and making sure that what we're fixing it up to is back to the standard of when it was built. So Jen and I talked a little bit, talked with Mark as well. So what we decided to do is we brought Art back out with another consultant, and they did a further study of the hill. The original study of what we got did show in confidence that they believed what was going to be built and renovated was going to handle what was needed, but they didn't do any thorough study of the hill because that wasn't part of the scope of the project. So what we did was we had an engineer come out, study the hill, look at the actual runoff, look at the retention ponds that are on top, and dig in deeper specifically to that slope to calculate the numbers to see what we could expect. But also what he did per request as well was we worked with planning and we got the original Carriage Hill documents to show what the original build looked like, to make sure what we are rebuilding it as matches up what was there, if not betters what was there to handle it. So so that's where we're at with Calander. I should have that soon. I talked to Art yesterday, day before, something like that. And we should have a letter from Paul from Insight Engineering about that. So I think that will help. I think that will answer a lot of questions at town meeting.
I was on mute. I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm sorry. I was talking earlier. I might have missed this, but the field must be in pretty good shape, though, right? Like because they haven't been touched in 6 months.
I was going to say, between the closures in the fall and the rain and the sun we've had now, I drove by today at Woodward and I've never seen that grass so green.
It's fantastic. I went for I went to get dinner and it looks beautiful.
I just want to run on it. I'm going to run on it. What I was saying earlier before I was muted was I'm going on the field in mid-May no matter what. No, I'm just kidding. But Yeah, they must be.
Sorry,
so,
guys.
You know,
No.
it is the best thing and on the net, you know, how horrible this is. At least the fields should be getting a lot of rest, right? I mean, that's the positive.
Yeah, I mean, Al can attest to it. They're soaked. They're absolutely
Oh, are
soaked
they?
when
Yeah.
we go out there, especially Calander.
Is Calander soaked?
Yeah, but you know, when we went out to put the signs, we were sinking in. But no, I mean, everything's getting rest, you know, including 9/11. So,
But Calander shouldn't be soaked. We've gotten a lot of rain, but have we gotten that much that it should be that soaked?
not
Or
not to the
maybe
point
I'm
where
wrong.
it's like flooded.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like it's like flooded, but it's,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
it's not draining
it's
as
just
properly
wet.
as it
Snowed.
should
It snowed 2 weeks ago, didn't it?
be.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah.
And then Mooney and Neary. Jen, do you want to take this one and talk about our meeting with the crew?
Yes. So I'm trying to remember. It was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This was Mooney and Neary. Yeah, we right. We met after the Board of Selectmen meeting and advisory as a group, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we met with
Like the next day we
planning,
had
planning
rec.
and
Yeah,
Karen
okay.
and
So it's
and
really
town
been
council.
since then. Yeah, okay. So since we last met as a group, we actually had a meeting with town council that was requested by Board of Selectmen, actually, that town council get involved and figure out like where we were with our project status and what the challenges were, and if we were blocked, how to unblock us. So we met with town council was there, Karina was there, so was the chair of the planning board, and then Tim and I, and
Karen from DPW.
Oh yeah, that's right. Karen DPW is there, and yeah, so we had a very, very long but really good conversation about like the status of the projects, where we were. I feel like a lot of the questions that have been raised in the past of, you know, is whatever that variance you were given still valid, or is this going to be still valid? Or there have been lots of questions I feel like kind of thrown at us along the way, where it was nice to have town council reassure us that those are all still valid, that this is still considered an active project. So we shouldn't have to redo any of the stuff that we've done to date. But also helping us get to a state where it's really clear what is needed in order to get an official application into the planning board. And I feel like even for me, clarity on like what people's roles were, more clarity on Karina's role and the planning board. And that as like when we feel like we have a package that's ready to go, it should be able to go to the planning board. Like Karina is there to help us and she's to advise us and let us know what she thinks. But at the end of the day, when we submit an application, it will go to the planning board. Let's see. We also clarity around what exactly is needed. So like town council asked to make sure that there's a very clear, explicit list that we can check off. To make sure that when we turn things in, that we don't get in the cycle of constant feedback of asking for additional things. And then there was also a conversation around kind of whether or not we had the right consultant on this. And Tim and I actually felt that Traverse Landscape has done a lot of great work for us in the past, and our experience with these contractors has been fine. That we actually discussed that a lot of the work last fall that was done, to be kind of fair, we didn't really pay Traverse probably the going rate that they should have, and they were trying to help us out a little bit as a favor because of our relationship. And that if we wanted to button this up, we really need to go back to Traverse and say, okay, so instead of asking for this as a favor on the side, we're officially looking to hire you to do this work, and this is what's required. Can you do it or not? To kind of get this done once and for all. And then the hope was actually town council was supposed to put forward an opinion. I don't know, Tim, if you ever got that.
Yeah, and
officially?
it was mainly what you just said. It was just summarizing that we came into agreeance that we would work diligently with planning and we would revisit Traverse and kind of work with them to get a committed individual. It may not be Art, but someone within the company that, you know, we're going to pay you, and we're going to have to pay them. We're going to have to pay them extra. I think that's part of it. That's kind of a, you know, kind of a thorn in the side of this, is we're going to have to pay them more, substantially more in comparison to the $800 that we paid last time, so that they are from start to finish in charge, you know, working with planning without us type deal, making sure that the packages they're putting forth are what are needed, so that there is not this constant back and forth monthly discussion.
Yep.
I missed something. I apologize, guys. What are we talking about? Does Traverse do everything that we do? What
This is for the Mooney lights and the Richardson tennis lights, to get the application actually to planning board.
But I thought we were at a state. Are we doing rework? Because I thought we were kind of at a good state the last time we met.
So
that's what we thought. Yeah.
Every time we submit, or every time it gets submitted in, we get a list of additional feedback.
So
from
they're just
Karina.
installing, obviously.
So I think like there's a lot of feedback floating around town, and a lot of like heartache around this. So I think like all that's also getting back to the Board of Selectmen, which is why I think they called this meeting.
What is happening?
So that's where town council got involved to figure out what was going on and how do we get this to resolve faster, especially because it's between multiple boards within the same town. Yep.
Did that letter ever get published? There was some mention of a potential. Okay.
No, due to the circumstances with COVID and everything, that was put on hold.
Okay.
So.
This is a separate question, but is DPW and things like projects being done right now at all? Is everything is anything getting done? Are they working in general? The DPW?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're
I'm sure. And then I missed a lot of stuff, but can the other projects get done right now in the middle of what's happening?
Yeah, so DePietri is dependent on the contractor, and they're just backlogged right now because of the weather.
So it's just delayed. Everything's just delayed. All right, yeah.
Yeah, and DPW has been working for us. So like down at the art center, they delivered all the mulch and got that playground up the speed. Yeah, because you're walking down there. They're working with me on the townhouse playground, which we'll talk about.
Oh, great. I just didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're definitely pulling their weight.
Yeah, that's great.
I have to ask about the skate park, because people actually are scaling the fence. We've now seen them doing it.
I've seen people in there. People in there.
Yeah, Alex and I were there. We had to kick a bunch out. I give her credit. She kicked a bunch out, and they just scaled up and over. So
it's so funny.
Yeah, that's selectmen are aware that we're going to take it out. It's just a matter of time to DPW to get to it. It's on their list. And they're working on the baseball diamond at Fayetteville. I'm sure you've seen that as well. They renovated that one. So they're working. They're definitely working to answer your question.
No, I just didn't know if they were allowed to. I haven't been noticing. I don't know. I didn't know what the rules were, what they were allowed to do and what they weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, they're on. I think they're on. The trucks are single manned.
Oh, okay.
But they're on a different schedule, but they're definitely working. If anyone's essential in this town, it's public safety and them.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And I think that's all I got project wise.
So I'm assuming, going back to a little bit to the lights, that you've been in contact then with our Eddie, and
he's working,
going to move forward? Okay.
Yeah. When he reached out about Calander this week, I asked him about that. He said, a quote by the end of the week, and include probably like a proposal like all the other projects. So
okay.
Hopefully by the end of the week we'll have that. If not next week, I'll pass it along to you so you can review it.
Okay. Okay. Next up there. Okay, so there was an initial, I guess, a couple meetings over the last week with the capital planning working group. So Tim, do you want to just update people on that?
Yeah, so to take a closer look at capital. I think to see, just because I think the budget constraints that the town is entering, what could be approved this town meeting, what could be put off to the fall, but also I think they're looking at the much bigger picture, 5-10 years down the line, of what could be expected. So when I initially got a call, it was about, I thought it was going to be about Calander, just because that was on the docket for town meeting. Turned out they were kind of they wanted our opinion on long-term goals of what we were looking to do. And I think that was kind of along the lines of what our next commission meeting was supposed to be about. We were going to kind of talk, 5 to 10 year goals down the line. So, looking at kind of the gist of what was discussed was, I think, I went over what we have for our outdoor facilities, which we are fortunate enough to have, kind of where we are with projects with them, the funding that we've gotten currently, went over the current funding that we have that we're working off of. And then, the biggest thing I try to get across is we have so much outdoor space and it's beautiful, and we have a turf field and everything, but we have no indoor space as a rec department. So, if I took the liberty to kind of say, I think if we had a priority, if we were looking for something big, it was going to be that indoor space, as we are, so heavily reliant on the schools, which is great. And they're outrageously supportive of everything we do. The cost does add up with custodial fees. When summer camp hits, one of our biggest costs is the money that we give to the schools and things like that. And, we're at the mercy of the schools again, of, if they have if they have plays going on, or they have meetings and things and whatnot. So it's, again, so it was discussing our current indoor space. And Jen, if I'm missing anything, please jump in. But our indoor space, kind of the needs that I think we need, that Alex and I need to further the programming and further the output of this department. The idea of Woodward came up, knowing that there's a potential that may be going offline to the schools in some odd years, as everyone brought up on their own as well. And then kind of asking, Jason asked me when he kind of gave me a briefing of what the meeting was going to be about, would that work? And obviously that would work. That would be an incredible space with a gym, with a field right there, so close to town, across from the senior center, everything like that. So but so it was just a real general conversation to think of what they think that is coming our way. And nobody was surprised that that's the route I went, because it seemed like everybody understood that the Arts Center on Highland was, reaching it's reached this capacity, and would potentially, be let go as an asset of the town. I feel like I'm missing something. Am I missing something, Jen? Oh, turf, more turf. I guess on a list that they had, I wasn't sure what document they were looking at, and this may predate me, so you guys can shed some light on that. There was talk of another study, if not another install. Obviously, there was talk of another install of turf. I think what they had down was Choate. I don't know if it was Choate, or it's because I said if we were to build it, I would build it there because of the lights. And they wanted to know how quickly we were going to act on that, and I wasn't confident saying that we were going to act on that quickly at all. I think we have too much going on right now, and trying to get other projects done that we don't want to take advantage. So I'm sure that's something that may obviously be revisited 5-10 years down the line, but right now I wasn't comfortable saying we were going to get going on that.
I wouldn't say, who knows what's going to happen, but right before all this happened, our plan was that in order to get people believing this is more than a vapor dream, that we were going to invest on a proper study that could demonstrate that it could be there and have something more tangible that we could show to potential donors. And then if we could get some potential donors and sponsors, then opening up a campaign to get more funding, whether or not we end up going to town meeting to ask for some, but if we could get some of it. I think 5 to 10 years sounds long. I know we don't know what's happening in the world right now, but I would hope that when we get back to normal, that's something we pick up.
Yeah, I think the conversation was more around when we were going to implement the study and ask for money for the study. Right, Jen? I think that was the gist.
Yeah,
Do we have to ask for money though? I thought we were gonna pay for it out of because
Revolver.
we use it, yeah, out of the
Right,
revolver, because we use it for
but that
rent.
still shows up on like in the finances. So that's what even if we paid it for it out of revolving, they wanted to know if we plan on doing it soon or not. So that's what we said we'd bring back to discuss.
Kind of hard to define soon, right? Because we don't even know.
Yeah.
But I would say
So
this.
we
the
should
second
do the study within the next 12 months. I mean, if you want to be vague about it,
Why
but
can't we
like,
do CPC money for it?
Can you fund studies?
Possibly. Actually, I don't know, but I think so.
we use it for recreation programs, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Did
Yeah,
we
we
use
did.
CPC for that other study we did for recreation? No, we didn't. We didn't.
now,
Really
obviously,
bad.
this is gonna tie into the financial discussion we have to have, because we were in a position
Yeah.
before where we could fund the study.
Right.
Obviously, that's gonna be a little bit
We
different.
don't have
but-
much else to ask CPC for coming up. We might as well ask them for everything and anything that we can do. It's not. I mean, what else are we going to ask them for? We're not building. If we're not going to build a turf field anytime soon, it's not going to be coming from them.
Right.
But I don't know. I can at least ask it. I don't know if that helps, but
So, I mean, it may be worth me then saying, if we're comfortable with it here, take that off your list, because it sounded like they were more thinking the town was going to fund it. And I actually don't even know what number they were looking at. Jen, did they even say a number?
I want to say they quoted 140,000 or something like that. I
hell
think
of a
that they
study.
were so. I
so
know,
what,
I
the
know.
140,000.
pulling-
I remember that. I remember a number like that from
Yes,
a couple of years ago.
but
right?
that is the whole design, everything
That's
cost. It
everything,
wasn't just a
yeah.
feasibility study. They pulled it. Someone pulled it off of our presentation a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
That was the
it's-
full feasibility or
it's
design
10%
study.
of the 2 million or so, 10%
Yeah.
of the whatever it
The
was. Yeah.
1.7 or what? Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because it was 1.4, and then they kicked in some additional money for lights, and that's when it was at Neary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so that's where they got.
So
that
I'm
from.
guessing that came from when we sat down with we had to provide, remember, like a 5-year capital plan to Brian Ballantyne like 2 years
Yep.
ago, 3 years ago.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
probably what was thrown in there, because we wanted to get the entire design done first and then go back asking for more money.
Right.
So this is, I'm guessing this is pulling from old budgeting or old stuff.
this might be a good time to start putting together the 5. Everyone's asking for a 5. CPC wants a 5 to 10 year plan too.
Mhm.
So maybe we should
And
try.
that's why I had it on as our
Yeah.
next meeting.
Oh,
I think,
sorry.
if you remember, and then
Yeah.
everything happened.
Maybe we can start putting something together or get like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's hard. I know it's hard, but anyways, cool.
Well, again, I'd just say that as soon as we don't know what the new normal is, we don't know what's going to happen with
Yeah.
sports, we don't know anything.
Yeah,
But I would
that's
say as soon as we get back to some state of normality, I'd want to pick up the turf project almost immediately again and,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
start moving forward.
It's already going to be a year delay just from this alone, even if
I'm glitching a lot.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the last piece of that, I think, talks of a joint space, sparked because the senior center was on the call, John Parent was on the call. So tomorrow, Pam, myself, Alex, and Bill, who's I think they're friends of or board of directors, whatever senior center has over there. We're just going to have a talk tomorrow, just for Alex and I to just understand historical context and understand what they've been looking for as a joint community center, just so that we can kind of have a unified front going forward if this comes up again, and kind of talk about our needs as well as their needs, which, if I had to guess, we're all going to be on the same page.
That's great.
Yeah. This sucks. I'm going crazy. I can't stand it anymore.
You can tell because you're just spinning in your chair, Dave.
Yeah. All right. I am like the worst person for this. My kids are doing fine. I'm not doing fine. My wife's doing fine. I'm not. Sorry. Different tangent.
No problem. All right. So then next up on the agenda, we talked already a little bit about the summer camp, so we don't know the current status, but we had on here kind of discussing the financial impact to the department of the loss of programs, all the loss of field rentals now for 2 full seasons, and kind of the status of where we're at.
Yeah, so this week, Alex and I have been looking at numbers, pulling numbers of where we are. You know, we really thought deeply of where we thought we were going to be for the last session of RAP. So I'll start with session 4. So we were 2 weeks into the program. So 60% of the program, of all the programs, were canceled. So we were projected to bring in just over $8 grand that session. But it looks like we're only going to bring in, looks like we did bring in, I got $3,200, just shy of 3,300. So we still brought in a good amount, but definitely, obviously not as much as we had planned. Session 5, I think, is the one that hurt the most, or was going to hurt. It does hurt the most. And that's because it was a big session that Alex planned out. I think it was our biggest since the two of us started. So we had 42 programs planned. Within those were our big ones for this season, which include track and field, which we all know is very big. When we shut down, we were almost at capacity of that program. So we knew that was probably going to sell out. We also had rugby, spring rugby starting and returning, and judging from the interest that we had from our parent meetings and just the consistency of the registrations that were coming through for that, we know that was going to be a big one. But also, we didn't have any competition this session. We were kind of only competing with ourselves. We didn't have ski trips. We didn't have, you know, a lot of the winter sports that were taking away kids. We didn't have any plays, nothing like that. And then we had, you know, a lot of new programs that we were super excited for. You know, we were introducing golf. What were some of the new ones, Alex, that we had? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, we had golf. We had a couple trips to Chestnut Hill Farm. We had one at the Gulbenkian Florist. The kids were going to get to go and plant in the greenhouse and things like that. We had a lot more off-site ones than on-site. So we were pretty hopeful that those would fill, pretty confident that those would have filled as well.
Yeah, so we were, so we kind of, the way we did it was we maxed, just so you know our thinking on this, we maxed out, we did the math at a maxed out capacity of all of our programs. National average for rec departments is that 20% of programs per session get canceled. So we took off 20% of that. And then, you know, we were conservative and we really felt strong that about 80%, we were probably going to fill at an 80% rate of all of our programs. It was what kind of the trend was at the previous session. And like I said, with the new programs and also the very large programs that we had, we took that. So we probably were going to bring in, I think on a conservative level, about 15,000 to add in. And again, that was really attributed to track and field being a big bump. So that's, you know, lost revenue right there. So we're up to, you know, just shy of 20 at that point. And then field closures. You know, I know that's not into our general revolving account with programming, but that does fund our 9/11 revolving account as well as our maintenance account for fields. We had 23,000 reserved for this session. That did not include baseball and soccer when it came to grass use, because we were waiting on their rosters to charge appropriately. That was probably going to be about $3 or $5 grand based on last season, and knowing there was going to be a little higher just because of the season, it is a little warmer, and baseball is obviously much bigger this time around. So, you know, we're talking 25 grand probably on fields, and that was also coming off, like we said, the backs of a good fall, but not as good as it could have been since we pretty much had to close the fields the second half of the season. So we took a hit. I mean, it's the advantage we have, I think we know, is that we have a good amount of retained money in that account. So, you know, this would have helped us. So we've refunded 29,000 to date. That's what we've done. And that is pretty much all of RAP. Most of it is RAP from that first session, rugby, track and field, you know, some of the big ones. So we are still holding on to camp. We have a good amount of money sitting there with camp. We are nearing the point as we sit here now of the break-even number. So we are hopeful that if camp goes, we have a feeling parents are going to be very willing to send their kids to camp this session.
Double.
Yeah,
But
I'll
that
pay
will
more.
be
I'll triple pay.
Exactly.
Which I have a question. I have a question about that, and I know you're waiting for the guidelines, so this could be considered speculation. But I actually went ahead and got my kids signed up to for camp right away, and because they offered refunds if something happens. Because again, speculation, but do you think that you'd be able to take in the same number of kids that you normally would take in? Like, has there been discussion of that? Like, I would, my thought process was because of social distancing or whatever, they'd have to reduce the number of spots.
Yeah, so I think that's what everybody has been talking about. When I'm sitting on calls with like National Park and Rec, everyone's freaking out because their minimums are like 300, 400 kids, and it's the sleepaway camps and stuff like that who are really worried. I think we're at a good starting point because we are traditionally and still small. Even though we are sold out for one of our sessions, it's only 50 kids.
Yeah.
And that for some reason, and again, everything is speculation and everything is assumptions and rumors, that number is what's being floated around a lot, is not going over 50. A lot of people are already planning on, if they got 200 kids, they're trying to take over 3 buildings instead of 1 so that they can spell them out, evenly. So I think that we are at a good point. And also, not all of our sessions are full. It's only 1 session. And the other ones that aren't full have, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, we're in the 20s, I think, for most of them. So we're at small numbers now. So I think we're at a good starting point. When it comes to whatever the guidelines are going to be. My guess is that's going to be the biggest one, is restricting the size of the programs.
So I'm sorry I missed this again. I apologize. Don't even have to get all into it, but you're saying there's going to be the government's going to make a separate rule just about camps alone, or are you? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're being told is the CDC will put out guidelines for day camp and sleepaway camps.
I just have a horrible feeling it's going to get canceled.
There's going to be no, I mean, Faye's already canceled their sleepover camp.
They're not going to have it. It's not going to happen.
They haven't canceled, Faye hasn't canceled their day camp. We're just waiting for the kids that are lined up to go to, what's the YMCA camp on the Cape there, Burgess and Hayward. And the hard part there is I think 85% of their counselors come from abroad. And you just can't see them getting in the country.
Have they said anything, Dawn, at all? Like any emails or anything? No.
No, and we're watching it because you've got the whole I think the refund date comes, but if they cancel, then they're gonna have to refund, and if they don't cancel, then we've already decided they can go.
The cabins are right there. You can just drop them off anyways.
They can go, and then we'll figure out where to quarantine them. We'll find something. I don't know what we'll do, but like
jump in the pond.
We
they can go. We're gonna roll the dice.
We made the same decision because when I started thinking about this the other day, I'm like, I gotta get our spot. So
they're not having it. I hate to say it. I would bet my life that there's no overnight camp. I just don't know how they could do it. It sucks, but I just don't see it. But hopefully,
I definitely don't think overnight, unfortunately. And
day ones they could do. They could do that. Yeah.
I think day camp has a better shot.
Now, the only thing I wonder is, do you think that is it worth? And again, I'm sorry, you probably already to make a plan of what you would do if the camp was going to run, to present it in case we have to. I know that's what businesses have to do, right? I don't know if that's.
And that's part of it. And Alex, you can. I know we've had a lot of ideas if you wanted to jump in, but there's that we can plan, but we're planning for a huge question mark.
I know. I don't mean.
No, and that's fine. I think it's a fair question.
Yeah.
But and Alex, I don't mean to speak for you, but we floated. Okay, we got 50 kids, but now but now do we have to separate them again? So we got 50 kids over in Trottier, and we got 50 kids over in Woodward. The other, I think, big question mark of this too, and we immediately haven't approached Greg about it. Will we be allowed in the schools? Over now that they're closed now, will we be allowed in the schools to operate out of there? And if we don't, do we cancel, or are we an outdoor camp who closes on rain days, things like that. So there's just, that's why, and it's across, it's all the boroughs around us, it's all the other towns.
So they got to set the guideline. They have to set the guidelines, and then you can work around those type things.
Yeah, and it gives me a little hope
So
that
I'm going
they
to
are
ask the question
allowing.
that
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, please finish that because what I was going to ask Mike is a slightly different topic. So
there's guidelines already being released for like essential childcare, and Alex and I read through them the other day, and a lot of what is being said with the childcare, like daycare centers and things like that, of going back into business, is easily transferable to a day camp model. Obviously, I'm sure childcare facilities have much less kids, obviously, but a lot of what they're doing, I think, is easily transferable. So, that gave me hope to see that they were already taking steps to let them open in June. So, we'll see.
Can I ask a question on the camps? Considering that we've got a whole new set of standards that we have to operate under, will there be different types of activities? Like, for instance, when you have a concern for social distancing, the kids aren't going to be able to be involved in some of the same activities that they might have been involved in the past. So are there different types of activities planned at camp?
Alex, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I mean, to what Tim said, I think the first thing we're gonna have to do is split the camps up again. I think it's gonna have to happen. Where the second camp's gonna be held, I don't know. I do think also we had at least one field trip planned a week. I don't think the kids are going on those.
No.
I don't think I would be comfortable sending them. I don't think I'd be comfortable with the staff going. That's a huge hit. I mean, these kids, we had Canopy Lake Park, Apex, Sky Zone, the zoo. I don't know if those places are going to open. So, between that and just, water play and playing in the gym, again, if we have the schools, I mean, I've been the supervisor of the Fin Camp for the past few years. I would be scared out of my mind if I was going into that position again. I think it's going to be so incredibly hard. I don't even know how you prepare the staff to keep these 3-year-olds 6 feet apart, tell them they can't put their hands in their mouth, tell them not to touch the ball with their mouth. Like, these kids, they're so young and they don't know. I think what's going to have to happen is once we figure out, this is what you have to do in order to run camp, we just start talking to, the 4 main supervisors. And honestly, if they're not comfortable, I don't blame them. Maybe we just have to start finding more staff, and, maybe the 10 staff per camp, we might need it to be 15 in order to keep the kids at a safe distance and also feel comfortable. If there's 24-year-olds, you're going to need extra people if you're not letting them, touch each other, touch their cell. It's just, there's so much uncertainty. I do think, sadly, I think that the camps will have to be separated. I don't think we're going to be allowed 100 kids in a room. Tim mentioned one session is at 50. Yeah, that's one camp though. The other camp probably has, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 kids already. So now you're way over the max, and that's just full day kids, never mind the half day kids. Again, to that was the week that the kids were going to Canopy. Are they still going to be going? I doubt it. Are those kids still going to want to come to the full day camp, or were they coming for Canopy Lake Park? Again, I don't know. So there's a lot that I can plan as many activities as I can, but it's really going to be the staff, myself and Tim going to the camp every day. I mean, it's not going to be camp. It's going to be.
Right.
Can we, and I don't know, like with the financial picture right now, but just, can we invest in more stuff? Since you're not going to go to Canopy, is there more we can buy and do, and, just, load up with some extra bells and whistles?
Yeah, I mean, right now, so besides the field trips, each camp was going to go on one field trip a week. We also had at least 1 to 2 vendors coming in.
Oh,
I think there's going to be some that are going to say absolutely not. And then there's going to be some that are so hurting for money that they'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find more of those ones that are like, hey, I'll do whatever you want. And have them come more often, you know, more toys for them to play with. Again, more things that we have to sanitize, but at least something so it's not them sitting for 8 hours a day. I think it's going to be hard. And I wish we knew now so we could start planning, because I think when we do find out, it's going to be a scramble of, you know, okay, is the staff we already hired, are they comfortable? Okay, they're not. Now we have to find new. Okay, they are. Now this is what we're going to have to do. And this is how you're going to have to, you know, do things with the kids and stuff like that. And then reaching out to all these places that the kids were going to go, you know, are you allowing kids to come back? I think it's going to be a ton of work. I don't know if I can say I'm very confident that camp will happen, at least on time. But it's a little overwhelming to think about.
Yeah.
And I think,
So
I
the
think
other
there's,
things too, the two things that come to mind. One, just making sure you've got enough sanitizer and all that stuff too, right? But you know, do you get to the point where you just cut it back? Like, what's the minimum? Like, is 50 the minimum for break even, or do you only offer a 20 kid program as opposed to, like, can you just not take as many kids?
no, I mean, break even's well below 50 across the board. I think I did the math. I think we only needed like 20 to 30 more registrations to break even across the board. So we were near that number, but there's two other things I think that are going to be the conversation. And Alex and I have talked about this, and I think, and a lot of other departments are talking about this soon. And there's departments who, you know, already know if camp doesn't run, you know, they're getting furloughed because that's their job and everything. So, you know, a lot of camps, it's kind of a do or die situation. So they'll make it work as best they can. But I think the two things, and Alex kind of just touched on it, is one, I think we need to be real, well, maybe three, something else just popped in my head, but maybe, you know, we have to be realistic on, okay, these are the guidelines, you know, hypothetical, you know, counselors have to wear masks and gloves while they're counselors. Are we comfortable with a 3-year-old being exposed to that environment? And I know Alex has gotten some concerns with parents already of, you know, is depending on what's going, you know, do we have to take the kids' temperature every single day they go into the camp? So, you know, it may be a decision of, okay, we have these guidelines in place. Maybe they're just more appropriate and we find it more successful if we just have the older kids this year. And we may have to scale back our younger camp, as much as I would hate to do that to parents, as we do have a ton of little ones that are registered already. And I know they're also, you know, very dependent on the care. You know, there's some bigger departments in some other states and in our state who are sanitizing their playgrounds 2 or 3 times a week, wiping down the entire thing. Can we do that? Realistically, no. I don't think we can. I don't think we can provide, I don't think we have the time to give with either be DPW or Alex and myself out there with a rag and a bottle spraying it. So, you know, unless it rains conveniently every single night and somewhat washes something off. So, you know, I think the bigger conversation is these guidelines are in place. Cool. Oh, it's 5 pages long. Is this realistic?
Yeah.
And as much as, you know, obviously we want camp to go, you know, we're dying for camp to go. You know, it's the safer sorry piece of it. And that's the last point. And I know a lot of my friends who are directors, we talk about all the time, it's, you know, if we get the green light and you look at the bigger picture, summer camp is going to be the first thing that really gets the green light with kids. And our towns and counties and, you know, parishes, wherever these people are operating, are they going to be the ones that are going to be responsible? God forbid there's an outbreak. You know, are we going to see a pocket at Woodward of kids who are getting it? So, and it's a legitimate conversation I think a lot of people are having. And I think it's because of that conversation that people are having that it makes the uncertainty even more that we're probably going to have a program of some point. But I just know it would be devastating to, you know, to kids. Obviously it'd be devastating to our staff, both financially and because they love doing it. And to parents who are relying, as I'm sure, hopefully by the summer, you know, businesses are opening back up, people are going back to work and they're going to need childcare, you know, and what's that going to look like? So, you know, like Alex said, I think even if we open, I think there's going to be a multitude of questions that this group has to address and kind of make our own stance on.
Yeah.
And do you think like I guess I'm making the assumption that's not probably solely ours or your decision. It's probably like our town's like Board of Health and selectmen,
Oh,
and
yeah.
people are going to weigh in on this, I'm assuming. So it'll be a broader discussion or decision.
Yeah,
I'm
I would
guessing?
hope so. I would
Yeah,
hope so at
okay.
least. You know, I would hope that, you know, everything we've been doing so far has been across multiple departments, and
Okay.
I don't see that changing anytime soon. Especially now that, you know, the town nurse has been the rock star in this whole thing. And you know, we talked to her, she already had her concerns. So if anything, she'll be giving us more and some advisement on how to proceed.
So
Hey,
one of
Doc,
my,
hey, can we prep a little? Can we have we bought extra hand sanitizer and things like that? I don't mean
Dave,
that,
if you
you
can
know.
tell me where I can find hand
I know.
sanitizer, I'll go buy it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think there are, well, yeah.
Well, if
I
you
guess that's
can't,
I have
then
a
you
question,
might have another problem.
and this
Yeah, I bought some.
this is, and I make connections awful. I'm like texting everyone being like, get off your Wi-Fi. This question is probably jumping ahead. I doubt with everything you have to think about right now, you've even thought about this, but I'm going to ask and put it out there anyways, is that if in the event, for example, we say we can't do the little kids camp, then could we think of like some creative alternatives that, like, I look at, you know, the big, everybody knows how I feel about driving by the open space fields and seeing them empty. It's like, could we think about as an alternative, not right now, not till you know anything and what's going to happen, like alternatives, like maybe we can't take kids all day, but can we plan, you know, outdoor activities where we can very safely with 10 people make sure kids are socially distanced, and it's like, you know, I don't know, kids yoga or just something, making use of the open space and fields, and having more activities where
Have
it's a little,
soccer, have sport.
yeah, like where it's
Yeah.
a little bit easier to contain them, and it almost like a modified, it's not camp anymore, but instead, all right, we can't do camp, let's plan some large group activities that we can use the open space that we have to at least break up the day. Maybe parents can't drop off, but I don't know. I've just been trying to think how we could make use of those fields some way, somehow.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the unified message of what the town is going to put out. You know, I know right now, just for example, the fields are closed, and it's partially because Alex and I agreed that the field should be closed, but it's also as Board of Health, it's what was coming down from the state level with the selectmen. So I think, like you said, it's going to be a bigger decision, not just us. But I do agree, you know, even right now, technically you can't go over 10 people in one group. So that still gives us, like you said, yoga in the park or an exercise class in the park or something like that. So I'm sure we can come up with an alternative, one, because we're clever and we can, but two, I think it's going to be out of necessity. I think that, you know, camp's canceled, it's going to be okay. All hands are still on deck. We have all these kids on payroll. You know, what can we do to try to meet the needs? So I think we'll have programming to an extent. I just don't know what that's going to look like outside of camp. And we're still throwing our eggs in the basket that camp is going to work in some way, but we just don't know.
Does it make sense to start off by enrolling a fewer number of campers with the idea that maybe you can enlarge the group later, as opposed to getting too large a number that would make it more difficult to keep them from being on top of each other?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to that guessing game of what that number is going to be. I mean, yeah, we can probably cap them at 25, but you know, but also based on what we have, some will be capped at 25, others will be capped at 32 because that's what we have. And I think we're going to talk about it, but I know Alex is getting emails. People are wanting to register. They're asking now to register because they want to make sure that if camp opens, their spot is secured.
Yeah.
And
Would it be too premature to ask the Board of Health for their opinion at this juncture?
I don't think it's premature. I mean, no matter, I mean, I don't think anybody knows. I mean, everybody we've talked to, they just have no idea. But But, you know, and that comes back to it then. I mean, these are all things we'll have to answer way down the road, but if we're told, okay, you can only operate with 25, but we're sold out with 50, how do we decide who we're gonna get type thing? So like, hopefully, you know, hopefully May 2nd isn't the actual date. That's only 2 weeks away, because I can't believe April's over already. So hopefully by then we'll have some sort of guidance, and then, you know, maybe we make it a point that our next meeting is that week or the week after, and we can kind of discuss from there.
There seems to be a big push to open state parks and things like that. Is that the same as the fields? I mean, do they kind of go hand in hand, or are they completely separate by town and by, you know?
It's completely separate.
It's separate,
It's like the trustees opening their trails. I mean, that was their own decision,
Yeah.
working with the town. So, I mean, it was town's decision to close down our fields.
The governor's not forcing the fields to be closed. No, he's not. Okay.
No, if that was the case, the track would be closed type thing.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
there's towns in our state, in the Commonwealth, who are not closed there because they're governing body, selectman, mayor, whatever, you know.
Okay.
I think the only thing he did,
votes against it.
I think the only thing he closed statewide, David, is the golf course.
Well,
Like,
that's why, 'cause there's a big, the golf, like New Jersey, they're opening the state parks and golf courses now. Whatever, but exactly. So that's just a different thing. That's fine. I just didn't know if they kind of went hand in hand a little bit, you know.
I think they do a little. You know, I'd be surprised if our selectmen and administration are not influenced from the state level.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, which we all should.
I think it's the right thing to do. I'm not like, I think it's the right thing, but maybe mid-May they could open up. Not that I know it's a different thing, but yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
But so that's
Well,
where
thank you,
it's
guys.
summer's a question mark. Yeah. And we're gonna, you know, I know Alex has been meeting with our directors still consistently and talking to them. But you know, it's gonna be, once we get clarification, we'll go from there. But for like, we're also looking at, you know, we're at a point now where Summer Nights is ready to go when it comes to looking for sponsors and vendors. But we're not sending letters, obviously. And, you know, sponsorship money has been coming in, just the usuals and the generous individuals we have. But we're not going to catch it until we know. Summer concerts, question mark, because we don't know what that's going to look like. Summer movie nights that we had planned, we actually have a plan B on that, to do drive-in movies. We have that set up.
That's a good idea.
So,
It's a great idea.
so we're working on that. It's going to be more money, so it'll probably be an abbreviated set of movies, but at least we have a plan B.
You guys are kicking butt. That's too bad that's
Yeah.
all that's happened, because you guys are killing it with all these.
Yeah,
great
you are.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you.
we'll be able to do it again sometime, but Jesus Christ, great job, you guys. That's
Yeah, honestly, like,
Well, just everything, not even the camp stuff that you already did that I would see, like that was all that stuff's impressive. I wanted to go to those camps. They look really, really, really good.
Thank you.
They might need counselors.
No.
Exactly. You want to work at the 3-year-old camp? Cool.
No, I'm pushing my kid out the door and see you later.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we invited Denise, but for some reason she didn't want to spend her night with us.
Although I do
So-
want to have my daughter be a counselor. I do want to try to get the inside on my daughter getting to be a counselor next year. But we'll talk about that.
Go.
Cool. All right, so I think like the last thing on our agenda was to discuss the playground behind town hall and what we want to do about that.
Right. So last time we talked, we were talking about the townhouse playground, how it needs to be removed. We all knew that prior to really having a study done. Then we had the study done, and it came back saying you need to get this out of here. So prior to all this happening and throughout this up to today, I've been working on a replacement for that, and I've shown it to Denise and Alex, and either they're lying to me or they're telling me the truth that they like it. So we kind of went with that design. So I'm going to share my screen in a little bit. I think the decision we need to make is, do we want to purchase it? Because I think what we need to keep in mind is that no matter what, the playground is going to be taken out, and the selectmen are aware of it. They were sent a memo. There was a few questions that came from it. I addressed them with certain groups, users of the playground. So they are aware that that is being taken out. So if we don't, just so we know, if we vote no, and that's fine, if we want to be conservative, there will be no playground over there in the next couple weeks, and that will be for quite some time if we are waiting for a significant replenishment. We do have the funds right now as we sit here. So if I were to make my opinion, I say I think it's a necessary investment just to be able to put forth, and I'll get to the price obviously after I show you it, but to put forth, you know, a brand new playground for that side of town to do. So there's my computer. All right,
wow.
let's see. Oh, no. I swear I had this all set up when we were done. Come on, all right, here we go. Okay, so just so we know, so that's what's there now, as we know, and I just want to run through it in case anyone from the public is watching this. Old wooden tire structures, very common in across the state, across the country. When this was built, you know, 5, 10, 15 years ago, probably. However, where we stand now with the regulations that are required from National Rec and Park, as well, mainly the playground safety guidelines, this playground just kind of fails across the board. Just a quick example, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you have that car there right next to the telephone pole. So there's obvious hazards kind of scattered throughout here.
The 5 feet
but,
underneath the flood.
Yeah, you know, swing set, the way this is built, for example, the top rail is wide enough that it's considered a surface. So we have to have a fall zone underneath it, but you know, that fall zone is supposed to reach, you know, well beyond, and it overlaps with the playground. So just general safety things. The equipment can't be retrofitted just because it's old wooden tire. So this is what we came up with. This is from a company called Ultiplay and Play World. The equipment that I've used, their equipment in other playgrounds, admittedly, that I've built, their equipment is not top of the line, but it's not bottom line. It's a very safe piece of equipment, in kind of right in the middle. If taken care of, we can easily get 10 to 15 years out of this. So the way I was looking at it, we had a lot of ideas that we were looking at, but what we really came out of is that we wanted to really mimic what was there, because I think it was a good layout. But also, that's a very small space. So we needed to be smart in how we use the space. So, you know, we came up with just a small climb-in structure. The one that's currently there is a 2-slide structure. The one that's currently there has a crawling tube that goes in between. This one just has general platform connecting the two. It's got climbers on every side, as well as some activity panels on the bottom. Currently what's there is swings. So we want to get the swings back in, obviously just a more sturdy piece of equipment that is up to code. And then, you know, take into account the space we need around it for safety of these two structures. We were really left with, you know, a small piece of land. So what we came up with, so this is just, it's called a sensory wall. And it's just kind of I'm pointing with my fingers right now, like you guys can see me. So the inserts on the wall are games for kids to spin around and play with. It's just sensory things to touch and to play with on each side of it. It's called a sensory garden. So you can see they got little animals, and again, this side and the other side are both games with the beads and the balls to play with. There's actually on the current structure on the far side something similar, the old school, you know, counting things with the beads. So we want to get something sensory, but make it again ground level for accessibility purposes. And then this guy is called a Cozy Cocoon. It's actually a spinner, and again, it's a sensory spinner that you wouldn't know unless you really are listening to this presentation or you look it up. So it looks much bigger than it is, and you know, 1 or 2 kids can sit inside. But inside, it's all carved out with pictures and touch sensitive pieces. It spins for that motion, and it is enclosing. It's built specifically for kids with autism, so they have a safe surrounding behind them. And then you'll see the blue here. The biggest piece of this is, so that's going to be that would be a poured in place surface. So that's giving direct ADA accessibility from the parking lot into the playground. That path would lead directly to this structure. So where the playground currently is in no way ADA compatible, every single piece of this is rated to be ADA compliant. And I know that's a big push in town right now with facilities and with playgrounds. I know it was with Fayetteville when that was built. So we want to make sure that was important. So there would be a poured in place path so that kids with assisted devices can get and enjoy this structure. This would be engineered wood fiber instead of just your regular bark mulch. So that is also rated for ADA compliance, so that for ease of transport throughout it. So for a good amount of stuff that we can pack in. That's the overlook of it. Parking lots here, you go in right to it. Picnic tables will stay on the outside. Fence is going to be replaced to make sure it's updated along the rock wall. But it's a small playground, but it's a sturdy playground. It meets code. It mimics to an extent what's there, and I think it offers some unique options compared to the rest of the town. The other piece of it too is these options. So last playground I built was $800,000. Playground equipment is not cheap. So I went to the rep and I asked him for his brochure of stuff that was on sale. We kind of tackled it from that way. So all in all, so for the equipment, for all pieces of the equipment, for the surfacing, the poured in place surface, shipping, and then also installation, they would send out a crew from their company to work with DPW. So this could be built in a day. So it would be quick once we get it. The total is $22,000. My personal opinion, that's a steal when it comes to a playground. However, I know we need to think realistic when it comes to finances of it. But this is good to go at where we are now, unless you all have suggestions if you want to change things. So we could place the order, and then we're looking at they're delayed obviously with everything going on. So the 8 to 10 week outlook until that comes in the town and we can get it in the ground. The playground there as it is probably going to be removed within the next week, I think. So there will be a gap of time without it, but it's a matter if we want to keep a gap of time for a long time or we want to make sure we can get something in there in the summer. So I'll take
Do you
questions.
think that area needs a playground?
Say that again.
I'm for any playground in the world. I don't care, but that area seems to be very. Does that playground get used? I don't know. I'm just a little.
So that was one of the questions we had, because we originally were thinking, oh, we'll make this like a little amphitheater for the library or something like that. But when we dug more into it, the church there uses it very heavily.
They do.
When they have services.
That makes sense.
Kinder Group advertises it very heavily on their site as a tot lot. So, and we know Woodward is, right down the road, that's no secret, but this also is rated for the younger kid. This is rated for that 2 and 3 year old and up. So, it was traditionally a tot lot area for preschoolers. And so we kind of made it may not look like it, but when it's built, you'll see that it's still around that age range.
Yeah. So
you do see people out there a lot, like not a lot of people out, but you see moms and little kids out there during the day, over lunch. Like whenever I stop by a townhouse, I always see at least a person out there.
No,
So
that's good.
Yeah.
It's hard to see it unless you go to the townhouse. Like I don't.
Right.
The church is a good point.
I'm always surprised because it is in really bad shape.
I do know that.
They're still out there on it. So
all right.
I think if we replace it, we make it kind of a destination. Those numbers will go up, especially if we're really pushing with the ADA surfacing and everything like that. We could see a whole new layer of clientele.
Should we
Jen,
wait to see?
can I just interject with one quick question? I've had to turn off my video because just my Wi-Fi, it's
Yep.
when every time I turned it off and I couldn't hear Tim. Is there any issue with my video being off?
No, not at all. Nope.
Okay.
I just have one question. Would it make some sense just to make a decision until we wait to see if camps are running and stuff like that?
Well, before we get to there, can I ask where's the money coming from?
Well, yeah, that's kind of
Sorry to be the finance guy, but
you're paying for it.
where's the money coming from?
So the plan, but the other plan of it too was because we were going to be at Woodward, we planned on using this for the younger kids, to bring them up, to separate them out. So the plan was to use it as a revolving account. We do have some money in our donation, unrestricted donation as well. And then I was going to approach the friends to see if they would make a contribution as well. I applied for a grant to cover the surfacing piece of it. So hopefully if that goes through, that's, you know, $1,100 off the top. We'll find out by the end of next month if that is approved. But it would be revolving mainly.
Okay. I was just wondering what the link, I knew we hadn't used it before, so I wasn't sure how you're going to link it to the revolving.
Mm-hmm. So what do we think?
I'm sorry. I heard, I'm having some connection issues, and I heard when you were talking about the installation being one day, and then I heard the figure 22,000. Was that just for the installation, or was that for everything?
No, that's all in
That's
22,000.
Wow.
And that's equipment, shipping,
Yeah,
and installation.
that's a great price.
At least it's a good deal. We can justify it that way. Yeah, it's a good deal. I don't know. I think it's a little, I just wonder if we could buy a couple weeks until it doesn't mean we still have to say no to it.
Well, I wonder like what, so Friends of had agreed to like fund some things. I'm wondering, is that stuff happening? Or I know there was discussion with Friends to see if they would help fund another van or things like that. I wonder if we should say this is more of a priority than those things
Well,
and
and I
shuffle
was
some of the
thinking,
Friends funds towards this instead.
yeah, I was thinking that too. And the van was still up in the air with them. They didn't give us an answer on that, I think, because that was a big chunk of money.
Yep.
Admittedly too, I'm sure they're thinking long-term too, if Gobble Wobble is going to happen, because that's a big replenishment. But what we already received was funds at least for the summer concerts. So there's a couple grand there. And if summer concerts don't happen, potentially I'm thinking that could be repurposed into helping with this. They gave, their usual money for camp scholarships for this summer. If summer doesn't happen, you wonder if they'd be comfortable throwing it at this. That alone right there combined is, I think, about $5 grand total, 5,000 or 6,000, which is a huge chunk of this project. So I think it's a conversation with Amy and the new regime over there. I have a feeling they would be very receptive to it, as this is just it's a clear cut use, I think, of those funds, just coming from the friends.
And I also think the timeline of at least 8 to 10 weeks out, like that starts putting us towards end of summer, fall anyways.
Yeah,
So.
and that's my hesitation. If we wait 3 or 4 weeks to see what the summer is going to do, now we're talking fall, winter, and that's a long time for a vacant lot.
Well, and you got to grab this cost, right?
Yes.
That too.
Yes.
That too. Yeah.
I'm in favor of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to take a formal vote just for sake?
I'm in favor.
Do we have to do the roll call?
So, well, I guess like, what are we voting on? So when someone needs to make some sort of motion that we're going to vote on.
Just lost.
So are we asking to go to the friends or to
expend the funds?
Okay.
I would
From
say, and then from our accounts, and I will report back proportions.
Okay.
Something of that line.
Say
You could
again?
say no. You could say something else.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
So we could expend the funds and then whatever we can get from reimbursements from somebody else? Is that basically what you're saying?
I was talking on mute. I was going to say, what about we make a motion to support the expenditure of $22,000 on the purchase of new playground equipment and installation at the location by Town Hall. This motion includes first approaching the Friends of Southborough Recreation, but in the event that we cannot source the funding there, we would use the revolving fund.
I'd second that motion.
What she said.
Good thing it's all recorded, so we don't need to take notes. It's all recorded.
Exactly. All right. So sorry, who seconded that?
I did,
Okay,
Dave.
Nixon. Okay. So then we do need a roll call vote.
Do you want to say all? Do you have to say
So
all?
Hanson, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Nixon,
Laval,
yes.
David Campbell, yes. Thumbs up.
There you go. All right. Okay. So do we have any other business to discuss? Anyone, nothing else to raise? Okay. So then
I will say
sorry.
that we are, just in case people are watching, we will continue to keep the fields and playgrounds closed until we receive further guidance from Board of Selectmen and town administration. So I know it's going to be hard with weather warming up, but until everything is lifted, we're going to stay consistent with public safety and keep those closed.
Yeah. Actually, along those lines, Tim, like transparency is great, right? And I think you guys have done an awesome job on communications. When's the last time you did send out kind of a, hey, this is what's going on? A lot of you guys are probably wondering about camp. We're really waiting to, a lot of what you shared with us, just to be real with people. Would you consider a communication like that?
We talked about that, definitely. Admittedly, a lot of our information is getting out through my Southborough as things are closing, things are opening, things are adjusting. As we know, that's a well-received platform. There were rumors that we canceled camp, so we did try to, we were starting to think about maybe sending a blast, but we don't want to cause any panic at the same time.
Yeah.
If we put out, we heard people thought camp was going to be canceled. Now suddenly it's like, oh my God, camp's going to be canceled. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I can say and openly that as soon as we receive guidance on the summer, we will put something out probably within 24 hours to all that are registered, if not all within our system. Just like you said, for transparency's sake, just to see, we'll take it in, we'll see what we can do, what we're going to be doing and put it out. But I don't want to make promises, or I don't want to cause speculation by putting anything out.
And I was planning on posting something this weekend. I'm going to rewrap the playgrounds in caution tape. Just, stay off, pretty much as blunt as I can be, because clearly no one listens. So I was planning on doing that probably Sunday. I was going to do it today, but there's really no point. It's going to pour the next couple of days. But it looks like it's going to be beautiful next week. So I'll rewrap them Sunday or Monday in the rain. Again, it doesn't do much, but as long as I can say I did it and it shows that it's there, it gives the police and fire the right to kick them off. So I guess I will be rewrapping them. But I'll post on Facebook like I did before and just kind of share it.
Thank you.
Again, so I can say that it was done and people have that to resource.
In case anybody's wondering, we're the ones that took the tennis nets off the tennis courts. We had somebody snap the bolt to get in and play tennis, so we just took the nets down. So, it sucks, we get it, but we just got to keep the greater good in mind with everything.
I can't think someone would snap the bolt. My goodness. Wow. Well, again, I just want to thank you guys. I didn't have a full appreciation probably for everything that you guys have been dealing with. I mean, I knew that the RAP registrations would be a nightmare, or refunds, I should say. But I definitely, after this discussion, have a full on appreciation with what you're dealing with. So thank you. And what you're going to have to deal with one way or another in the next few months.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, it's been interesting, to say the least.
Great job, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I apologize. I know we all want to go, I'm sure, but it just popped in my head again. obviously there's a budget issue now with the town. I'm
Yep.
sure everyone's read it. So we are being tasked with relooking at our budget. We don't have a budget, so we are, so we're going to see how that plays out. Right now, we're continuing to pay Denise out of our revolving account. She is still working very actively with us. She is. We are exploring repurposing her as well with other departments, so that she can be as useful as possible and earn the pay. She's more than willing to do it. She's been tremendous. The goal, the ask for us is to cut down to 2% and then to cut down to 0 and see what the impact will be. The impact is our only lines, which is salaries.
Right.
So that's going to be made clear. The feeling, I don't want to speak out of turn, but the feeling I'm getting is that will not be a favorable cut for the board. And I think it's one of those things. I think if you do, it's just like any other town. If you do 2% across the board, it's disproportional. So, we'll make our case on how it's going to affect us. I did kind of play around with 9/11, that's done. That's why I emailed you about that could we absorb that if it's coming back as a reimbursement? I was kind of told not to do that. I think there's more to it that we know. So just trying to be crafty, we could talk about dipping into revolving for our salaries, but I am not opening that can of worms because that welcomes a million other things. And, that's been floated and I've obviously talked against that. So we'll see what happens. The revisements are due Friday for, I think, selectmen to consider, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right.
That's it. Stop talking.
No, if I don't know, Jen and Tim, like if there's ever an upcoming board of selectmen meeting that would make sense for us to have more of a presence at, just let us know. Admittedly, I'm sure we're all distracted with a million other things. So Jen, thank you also for helping manage through this. But if there's a point that we should be showing up to the Board of Selectmen Zoom, will you let us know?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
That makes sense. So when do we want to schedule our next meeting for then?
So I would recommend that week after we're supposed to hear potentially. So that would be the week of the 18th.
Makes sense.
Okay. Day of the week preference for anyone?
I'm
Monday,
home all the
Tuesday?
time, so
Anyone
I'm
got
really
a busy
busy.
night plans?
Yeah, yeah.
I know it
I'm
sounds
really
weird,
busy. Let me
but
check my
Well,
schedule.
what's club night?
Mondays are a little bit better for me because during the week we sometimes have calls at night. But like again, if we plan it enough in advance, I can schedule around that.
So Monday the 18th.
Sure.
Okay, 7:30. All right, and then I know just before we close out, I want to see if there's any public comment because I know we have. It looks like maybe Sam with us.
I thought you were gonna say several. I was like, what?
We had some people earlier, but
Did we?
Sam has
everybody
stuck with
wants
us.
to know what's going on
so,
with Fields. So.
Yeah, his hand's raised. I don't know if you can let him in.
Yep.
Tim?
Good thing I'm hiding my beer. I'm not.
All right, Sam, there you go. Hey, Sam.
I'm in.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're in.
Hey, guys. Just want to say great work. I know this is an extraordinarily challenging time. You guys are doing a great job trying to keep ahead of things and keep the wheels turning. So I think as Kristen mentioned, I think few people appreciate what has to go on behind the scenes to keep things moving, keep the opportunities available, and remain flexible as the world changes here almost on a daily basis. So many thanks, good work, and keep it up. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, Sam, thank you as well, obviously, for continuing with the work on the board. So it doesn't seem easy.
For anyone.
Look at my hair.
I wish I had hair, Dave. Come on.
right.
I paid you.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:16 p.m.
A second.
All right. Awesome,
to see you
guys.
Love all the
Thank you. Good to
babies.
see everybody. Stay healthy.
Okay, everybody, stay well.
Good night.
Bye,
Stay
guys.
well.
Good
Yeah.
to see you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.